Ron to talk about the web link capability in Legacy Family Stories, and we're going to use as an illustration Find a Grave. So, way to go, Ron, you're on.
All right, so basically we're going to be looking at a website called Find a Grave that has been accumulating all kinds of information on cemeteries around the world, mostly in the Western Hemisphere so far. But it's
they're now a partner with the LDS Church, and
I'm not certain of that, but I think they might be.
Yes, I received notification.
Oh, good.
That members of the LDS Church are going to be able to sign in to Find a Grave free as it's rolled out. I understand it started in the Utah area, but it is to be expanded across the world.
That'll be nice. But anyway, what we're going to access today is free, so it doesn't require a membership or anything. So we're going to access Find a Grave from our legacy file. So let me turn on screen sharing, and we'll go into our legacy folder. And here's our legacy. I'm looking at the William Taylor Elizabeth Patrick family. And we're going to just have a little bit of fun here. We know for the upcoming Taylor Association Roadshow in Far West, Utah, that we're going to have a tour of some of the graves at the Ogden City Cemetery. And so I'm going to show you how easy it is to find some of these online. We know that there's 3 of these family members from William Taylor family that are buried in that cemetery. John Taylor, Joseph Taylor, and Pleasant Green Taylor, that are all 3 are buried in that cemetery. So let's take a look at some of these. Let's take Pleasant Green Taylor is probably the easiest one because he has more of a unique name. So I'm going to take Pleasant Green Taylor, and then I'm going to click on Internet and search the Internet for the current person. And the search that I want to do is against findagrave.com. So I put that in my search parameter. The other fields are already filled in here, and then I hit the search button, and it loads up Find a Grave on the Internet. And sure enough, there's Pleasant Green Taylor. Let's click on his entry, and it shows us his grave. Shows us a whole bunch of information about him that's been posted. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see some of his children. He had quite a big family, and all of these are essentially hot links to where their grave is. So for example, if we wanted to go to Harvey Green Taylor, we could click on Harvey Green Taylor, and there's Harvey Green's tombstone and his website.
I understand that he had 42 children.
I don't know. Let's go back and look.
Yeah, that's what my kid tells me.
Doesn't look like they're all here, but this has got a good number of them linked to his entry.
These are ones that have tombstones that are in Find a Grave, right?
Yeah, and not only that, but they've been connected in the Find a Grave website to Pleasant Green's record. Okay. But this is kind of fun because you can see there's pictures, tombstones, dates and times, and locations. And at the very bottom of each one, it'll tell you the cemetery, and sometimes it'll give you the plot. So if you've got a plat map for the cemetery, you can tell exactly where that person's tombstone is. So that's Pleasant Green. Let's go back to Legacy, and we'll try another one. So that was Pleasant Green. Let's take his brother Joseph. Joseph Taylor was part of the Mormon Battalion. Let's click on that and say search.
You know the reason that Pleasant Green didn't go? He got sick just before they were to move out, and so he couldn't go. He was planning on it, but he couldn't go.
I didn't know that detail. That's interesting. Anyway, so here's Joseph Taylor. We're going to search the same way, and you'll notice the parameters stay in our search tool, so we don't have to re-enter them each time. And Legacy has already filled in the search parameters that we want for Joseph Taylor. So we'll just hit search. and there's a Joseph Taylor's. There's lots of them, so we need to come down here and find the one we want. There's a private Joseph Taylor buried in the Ogden City Cemetery. That's probably our guy, so we'll click on it. Sure enough, there he is, Mexican War, U.S. Mormon Battalion.
Yeah, he was a private there. He became a major by the time the Utah War hit.
Yeah, that's even more interesting. But there it's listed his some of his information, and down here further, these are some of his children that are connected on Find a Grave. And of course, at the very bottom, you've got that's the location of his grave. But it's in the Ogden City Cemetery. Okay, last one. Let's go back one more time so you can see how easy this is. Let's take the oldest brother, John Taylor, and we'll do internet, search for the current person, search John Taylor. And John Taylor, we're looking for something in the Ogden City Cemetery. Here's one. And that's the right dates. And there's John Taylor. And again, his children, some of his siblings. Notice Joseph Taylor's already been looked up because he's kind of gray instead of blue. And where's Pleasant Green? There's Pleasant Green. Doesn't show gray, but it should have because we've already looked him up. And there's where John Taylor's tombstone is.
And that's the tombstone that we're seeing there on the right, right?
That's a picture of the tombstone, yep. And you can zoom in on that.
Oh yeah, clearly visible.
So maybe one of these days they'll have 3D and you can spin the tombstone around and look at the back, but usually they just have another picture of the backside. So kind of a nice free site, and you can use that to find all kinds of information for your family.
Now, Ron, let's talk a little bit about that information that we can find about them. So it would help as we're looking to verifying where's this information coming from. Is it people are just filling it in as they have it? So how valid would we say the information is that we're seeing?
It's hard to say how valid it is. Sometimes they will post, whoever's doing collecting the data for Find a Grave, sometimes they will post newspaper obituaries, or sometimes they'll post an autobiography. There's all kinds of stuff that can be posted. At times, the only thing you'll see is maybe the date of birth and date of death, but no places, no biography, no other family members. So sometimes it's difficult to determine if it's the right tombstone. But some of these, like the ones we've been looking at for these Taylors in the Ogden City Cemetery, they have so much information with them, it's easy to determine that they're the right person that you're looking for. Just a little comment here, you'll notice that the parents for John Taylor are listed as William Warren Taylor. Warren is not a proven middle name. There's been a little bit of a controversy there, but that's how things get posted, and then pretty soon everybody starts thinking that it's real.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, so when they can look at the information associated with one of his children, and then maybe compare that with what they see in their own personal file then, I suppose.
Yes. Let me show you how we would book this Find a Grave information into Legacy. So here's my Legacy. Let's say John Taylor. I'm going to edit his record. I'm going to change the source clipboard to Find a Grave, and I've already been using that, so it's set up already.
Okay.
And then I save the clipboard. Let me show you how to set it if it wasn't there. So I'd say change the master clipboard. I'd find the Find a Grave in my master source list. Select that, and then save that clipboard. And then that Find a Grave proves his name, his birth date, his death date, and his burial. So I'm gonna set each one of those fields. So there's that one. I click on the single bar. I'm going to source it on that field. I'm going to source the death, and I'm going to source the burial. Now let's look at the sources so you can see them. So here's the sources we just did. We got find a grave as a source for his name, a source for his birth, source for his death, and a source for his burial.
Isn't that easy? Isn't that wonderful?
It's that simple. And since find a grave is still set, let's go ahead and do Pleasant Green, because we've looked him up. So here's Pleasant Green. I'm going to source his name, his birth, his death, and his burial, just like that. So let's look at those sources, and you can see them. You see the find a grave for his name and so forth.
So a person could in a particular cemetery where there's a large part of their family buried, they can actually use this to just go in and put those sources in for all the people that were buried in that particular cemetery, right?
That's correct. On Joseph Taylor, since I don't have any other events, I can click this triple bar and it will source all of the populated fields. So I click that, and all of them have been sourced
to find a grave.
By find a grave. So there's find a grave name, birth, death, burial. What you have to be careful of there is if you have additional events, if you click on the triple bar, it will apply the source clipboard to all populated events, not just these ones up here. So just be aware of that. So if you've got other things in here you don't want sourced, don't click the triple bar. Just click on the fields that you want with the single bar. That's how you do it.
Well, Ron, that was wonderful. We'll need to share some of this, I think, in your lab at the Far West Roadshow when we do that.
We can definitely do that on the Roadshow.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll conclude the broadcast.